Lot.
Well, Gary and Hannah, what happened is the first time Mike Tyson hit Henry Tillman, it was over. He went out to get him. He obviously stalked, and Tillman tried to run. His legs didn't carry him out of danger, and he didn't survive one round.
No, there was no question about this. You could see that Henry Tillman was pretty much scared to death coming into this contest, and he had reason to be afraid because Mike Tyson took it straight to him and took him straight out.
Right, I thought Mike Tyson would try to establish his jab, and he did. Then he stopped, and he looked like he wanted to catch him. Tillman hit Tyson one time with a good counter right, but after that, once Tyson connected, it was over. He looked well-trained, he looked well-motivated, and minutes after the fight, I caught up with Mike Tyson in his locker room. Mike Tyson, you had the cold, hungry look of a wolf, man. How did you feel going in?
I used to feel very relaxed and confident. You know what I mean? Because of my outcome in Japan, I still know I'm the best fighter on the planet.
So there was no doubt or any healthy dose of doubt?
Not at all. I'm very calm, very relaxed.
You just went in and you created aggression, Mike.
I wanted his blood. But, you know, I was prepared to go 15 rounds.
What did you?
I wanted to say something. You know what I mean? Thank God and all. Henry Tillman, believe it or not, is a great friend of mine. No one knows that. Me and Henry hang out. We're good friends. And I was bad. It's business, but it's so bad. I feel so bad now that I had to come out to this. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to see him and we're going to hang out, and I'm just going to feel the feeling's going to be bad.
But you just knew going in, like what happened, Tucker, you're never going to get embarrassed again. That was the point, right, Mike?
Not ever again. You know what I mean? I'm never going to lose again.
How'd you break him down? Tell me.
Because I was just feigning. I was doing a jab. I was a little hesitant. I was laying on my right, which I never do, and he grazed me with a right hand on top of the head.
On the road to the championship again, right, Mike Tyson?
I'm the best fighter in the world. There's no doubt I'll be the champion.
Thank you very much for being with us, Mike.
Thank you, Nick.
Well, there you see it. I mean, that's a picture of confidence if I've ever seen one, and Mike Tyson certainly was very businesslike about what he did.
Yeah, it was a confidence builder, to be sure, Fred. It was what Tyson needed. Nobody said in his defense that he had to fight a top-5 guy and go right in there. He wanted to fight Douglas next. He wanted the rematch immediately.
Yeah. Now, while these guys are getting set up for the press conference, I can also tell you that before this fight happened, big George Foreman went in, and he looked pretty impressive as well. That's the fight I think everybody wants to see. You know, the great sports fans fight would be George Foreman and Mike Tyson coming up. George Foreman got rid of his guy, Adilson Rodrigues, in the second round with a big knockout of his own.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that Rodrigues didn't show more in the way of a punch, but Foreman was not discouraged at all. And once he started clubbing, look at George's big arms. You just can't discourage him.
His jab is as good as most guys' right hooks. And what we couldn't see in that particular clip of video is the fact that in the second round, the round that you're seeing right now, George came out dancing. I mean, 263 pounds, he was like a dancing bear. The big jab, the right hand.
Here comes that left.
There you go. Good night, nurse.
Dangerous.
Yeah, George looked very crisp and very sharp, and we hope to be hearing from him in just a moment.
Yeah, George Foreman's a very heavy puncher. He can do that. A Tyson-Foreman matchup looks somewhat intriguing. I mean, right now on paper, I think Tyson would just blast in. He doesn't have the custom-made style, but I think he would wade through and beat Foreman.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. Mike Tyson looks as sharp as I think I've ever seen him. George Foreman is a nice guy. He's a great human being, a great ambassador for the sport right now. But taking out Mike Tyson, I don't think so.
But back to Tyson, I think the interesting thing about him is how would he react? You never know. It's happened before. Joe Louis got knocked out. He came back and looked great. Donald Curry, who was undefeated, got knocked out and never came back. He was a shot fighter. You know, as great as Tyson looked, the greatest man on the planet, we didn't know coming in. We know if somebody throws enough punches and does enough things, they could knock any heavyweight out. Now let's take it to Don King on the podium with Mike Tyson.
And we want everybody to be happy. So now, whatever question you want to ask Bob, you want to say a few words before we get through, and let him come on in. Talk to him, Bob.
I just want to congratulate both fighters for great performances. I'm glad to see that Mike Tyson is back.
All right. You heard it right there from the co-promoter, Bob Arum. This is fantastic. Okay, Henry Gluck, you want to give your major announcement right now? Do it one more time, Henry. Let Henry make it. You got a major announcement. Henry, make your major announcement.
Thank you. I think we said...
Boy, you know you got it.
We announced this evening that Cosmo World, it's an international development company, is building a huge project about 15 minutes from here, and there's going to be a Caesars Canyon Resort Hotel with about 350 luxurious rooms and suites and golf suites, 27-hole golf course designed by Jack Nicklaus, ATP Tennis Center with a 2,000-seat stadium. It's going to be another dimension for those. There's no casino. It's a pure resort just 15 minutes from the Strip. We're delighted with these people. They're huge builders and developers, and we should be ready in about a little less than 2 years. Thank you, Don.
Okay, Fred, waiting to hear now who Tyson fights next. We hear that Foreman's going to fight Francisco Damiani, and possibly Tyson will fight Alex Stewart, the guy who Evander Holyfield handled.
Yeah, and Evander Holyfield is here in the building with us. We're going to come back with more later, but right now let's go back to Atlanta.
Of course, we also hope to hear from George Foreman, who will be stopping by there. And I think the most important thing we got out of all that is we now know that Nick Charles has come face to face with a wolfman. He knows the feeling.
Mike Tyson, he indeed is a wolfman, devouring his opponents 38-1, 34 knockouts. Nobody can or would argue with that.
Well, let's move to something a little more competitive.
Okay.
If he wins, he moves up more, and if I win, I move up, and it's just business. Excuse me? You know what I mean? By all means, Henry's a good fighter. You can't tell. He won, you know what I mean? He was in he moved up in weight. He's really just a cruiserweight. You know what I mean? But he's a very good fighter. Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Question.
What does a one-round knockout do for you besides give you a win?
Well, basically, you know, I'm an experienced fighter. So if it went 10 and went 1 round, regardless of the issue, you know what I mean? I'm just happy to get the win, you know what I mean? And I felt great, and I was just prepared to fight all night long. I'm just in good shape.
Yeah.
What was the question? What was the question? Tyson Foreman, if, when, how soon?
Well, let me answer that. I think that Bob and I is going to put on another doubleheader in September 8th. We're fighting 2 respective opponents. Mike Tyson will be fighting, what's the guy's name? Alex Stewart. Alex Stewart, a top-rated heavyweight, the one that everybody was coming on with. So he'll be fighting Alex Stewart in September 8th. So, and you'll be seeing it on HBO, the ones that don't get a chance to come here and see it live and in living color. So we will be fighting that way, and we'll see how it goes, again with George and Bob on another card, and then we can talk about what may happen if the 2 giants meet. Yes?
Get him, he's coming.
Repeat your question.
He's coming right there. Go grab him. There, coming through.
Well, he didn't have a sweat, and my objective was to feign him out and make him make a mistake, and I catch him with a right hand. My objective was to hit him with a right hand, though.
I thought I saw him coming through. Right here. No?
Not at all, no.
Yeah, question. Go ahead.
What?
What did you do different from what you did in the Buster Douglas fight?
Prepare. Huh? Oh, my baby, he is unbelievable. He is so gorgeous. He's
Well, Mike Tyson, of course, continues his post-fight news conference, and also part of the deal tonight was George Foreman, who was every bit as impressive. And let's take a look at the highlights of his second-round knockout of Adilson Rodrigues. It was over relatively early. There's Big George, 263 pounds, and the left jab turned out to be the killer.
Well, and Adilson Rodrigues, once he started trading punches with Foreman, yeah, the jab sets things up and the right hand gets there. Once George Foreman started throwing that uppercut, it was going to set everything up. It ended up setting up the left hook, and George Foreman proved again if you put a stationary target in front of him, he'll knock it out.
And as you can tell, it looks as if George Foreman is about ready to make his way toward the podium. It's Henry Tillman apparently now is arriving next to Mike Tyson as we continue our live coverage from Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Still ahead on this expanded edition of Sports Center, coverage of the U.S. Open. The latest on Isaiah Thomas and all the baseball highlights. We are coming to you live from Las Vegas on Fight Night. Sports Center continues in a minute.
ESPN Sports Center, brought to you by Dave's Inns, Hotels, Suites, and Day Stocks, the best hotel values in the world. And brought to you by Michelob Dry Beer. Once you experience the bold taste with no aftertaste, there's no going back.
Live in Las Vegas, as you see, Evander Holyfield has joined us. Evander, when we talked yesterday, as a matter of fact, you said it was really imperative for Tyson to take out Tillman early, and obviously that's what he did.
Well, you know, Tyson went out and he fought a good fight. He was able to stalk Tillman and was able to trap him in the corner and made Tillman move as much as possible. And he was able to counter and hit him with an overhand right, which was a good shot high over the temple.
Now, what kind of an opponent would you appraise Henry Tillman as being? This wasn't really a serious test for Mike Tyson.
It could have been. Tillman would have fought the fight that he fought in the amateur. He was able to stay away from it. But you can't take that from Tyson. He was able to stalk him, he was able to trap him, and was able to get the big right hand on it early.
Evander, the movement of Tillman is different than, let's say, you would fight a Mike Tyson. Of course, you got Buster Douglas up first, but you would be a little bit more stationary, even though you'd be giving him some movement. Was there anything that Tillman could have done like he did, landing that straight right hand? Is there any way, if he had been a little more aggressive, then started moving, would that have helped him?
I felt that it would have. I felt that Tillman moved a little too much, and he just moved when he didn't have to. And well, it gave Tyson time to dictate the pace. And Tyson, when he dictates the pace, it's hard to stop him.
Tyson did get hit with one solid shot by Tillman. Did that light any lights for you, ring any bells?
Well, I knew that Tillman had a quick right hand, and I felt that Tillman would get the right hand and would get the respect. But it'd take more than one right hand to get the respect of Tyson.
As you see, Mike Tyson is on his way to a shower and being congratulated by the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Now let's turn our attention to George Foreman. What were your impressions of him tonight?
Well, George a very patient fighter, as he showed. The first round, he got outpointed. Because Adilson Rodrigues is a very quick-handed fighter, and it was just the second round, he turned it on and he went to the body, hurt him to the body, and which I felt that set it up for the knockout. When he hurt him to the body, he missed him with a right hand, then a good left hook, called him right on the chin.
Are you a believer of George Foreman now?
Yes. He has proven to me that he's ready. I feel that, you know, you can only fight when they put it in front of you, and he did that, and he did it impressive.
So now the next step for you, court case willing, is September 20th, 21st, October 3rd sometime at the Mirage with James Buster Douglas. Do you see somewhere down the road a meeting with Tyson or Foreman, and how do their styles mesh with yours?
Well, I feel that, you know, number one thing is to get the title from Buster Douglas. And of course, I'm going to fight the number one contender, whether it's Tyson or George Foreman to raise the rudder. I just want to fight the number one contender.
That, of course, is Evander Holyfield. A little while ago, George Foreman, of course, coming off that second-round knockout of Adilson Rodrigues, joined us immediately before he went to the shower. Let's go to that interview now. You are looking at the world champion of the 40-something generation. George Foreman has done it again, knocking out Adilson Rodrigues with about a half a minute to go in the second round. George, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Well, we can make a confession here. We had breakfast a couple of days this week, and you had the shredded wheat. I'm going to tell now. We had shredded wheat, or you did, and I saw prunes on top.
That's
and
right.
that made me a little bit nervous. Is that the breakfast of champions?
You know what? I had to change my mind and go on yours, though.
All right, we started eating oatmeal as the week wore on.
He teased me so much I had to put on the granolas with oatmeal.
Yeah, that wasn't half bad.
That is beautiful. I'm not going back to the prunes.
No more prunes. All right, we've done something here this week. Tell us about what you did tonight. Tell us about the knockout in the second round.
Well, I was surprised the guy would open up so quick with me. He started a lot of good movement, and I know Angelo Dundee fighters try to move a lot, keep you off balance, to box you and get you out of your game plan. But he started opening up, throwing hard shots a lot quicker than I thought he would, and that enabled me to get a knockout quick. Ordinarily, it would have taken me about 7 rounds, I would have thought.
You were planning to go a little bit further, I guess.
I thought the fight would at least go 5 to 7 rounds.
Now, where do you go from here? We had talked earlier in the week. It appears as if you've got a date with Francisco Damiani on September the 8th. Is that pretty much what you know?
I've heard conversations, but I haven't had any contract talk yet. But I'm hopefully the winner of the Mike Tyson Henry Tillman fight. That's a possibility. And then, if not, I'll fight the winner of the Buster Douglas, the champion name. I forgot his name.
Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield.
Yeah. And I'll fight the winner of the two, but either one I'd be happy with.
Are they still running from you? What do you think this performance does for you in terms of legitimacy out there in the American public and the media here in this room?
Well, all my friends and my fans, they've always been satisfied with what I was doing. They knew I was starting from the bottom and working my way up to the top. But then there were a lot of people criticized me saying I was fighting stiffs, but they were only saying that because it's true.
But you're not fighting stiffs anymore.
No, I'm fighting some good fighters here recently. Good fighters. Like I said, I prefer to be fighting Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Buster Douglas. But right now, they're not waiting in line to fight me. But I think in the near future, I'll be in that ring. I'm going to be heavyweight champ of the world. All I need is an opportunity.
ESPN boxing analyst Al Bernstein joining us now. Al?
Well, George, I think the thing that a lot of people are wondering about is when you were fighting those, in quotes, stiffs, who were mostly cruiserweights, let's face it, it was taking you 8, 9, 10 rounds sometimes to knock them out. Why are you knocking the heavyweights out faster?
Well, I got back into the ring and everybody feared the old George Foreman. These guys were playing tricks. They said if you keep moving, running, his old legs are going to get tired. And it seemed that the old legs didn't do nothing but get oil in them. So I started knocking them out later. There were some good fighters out there that I fought, really good fighters, not being honest, but I had to reach down from the bottom, and now I got my timing, my accuracy is there. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 round knockouts again.
Is it better conditioning, truthfully? Even though you're big and people joke about that, you look really like you're in better condition now.
I still got my left, right, and my belly bump, too.
That's good. It works.
If I can't do anything, I can hit it with my stomach.
There you go.
George, I think we were all surprised that you weighed in as much as 263 pounds because as we watched you work, you didn't look it. Were you pumping iron? What were you doing? Because the waist wasn't hanging over.
I eat a lot of food, which means I work out a lot. When the average guy's running 2 and 3 miles, sometimes I put in 16 miles a day running. And when you run and work out like that, you got to have lots of food. And what happened, it just stays on me there.
What kind of pressure do you feel? We talked about it some down in Houston a couple of weeks ago about being this post-40 fighter and what that means to the post-war baby boom out there. You're carrying a banner, aren't you?
I really realize, people should realize this is a peep into the future. George Foreman, someday there's going to be a 50-year-old guy out there whipping everybody. I mean, he's going to be better than George Foreman, and it may be me.
George, you have actually a better defense now than you had when you were younger. I don't know if you'll agree with that.
That is true, because I was a totally offensive fighter originally. Now I'm an offensive and defensive fighter. I prefer to have punches thrown at me.
How did that transition come about?
Well, you realize, hey, first time I was a sitting duck. I'd throw all my punches out, and then if I didn't get these guys, they'd wait. So I said, wait a minute, I'm going to make them throw some out too. And if they don't, I'll keep throwing it and taking a rest occasionally too. Now I'm a little smarter. You know, youth and enthusiasm are good, but age and craftiness is going to be I'm reaping the benefits of that too.
You use kind of a cross between Archie Moore's old mongoose defense, and then you come out striking. Tonight it looked like when you started using the uppercut is when you got serious about knocking him out. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I started using the uppercut. I was surprised to catch him so soon, but after I did start catching him, I just kept throwing it.
The champion of the 40-something generation, the man who won't eat prunes anymore.
I'm going to granola and oatmeal.
George Foreman, congratulations, George.
Thank you.
And you are looking live at George Foreman at the post-fight news conference here at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. So about an hour or so after he decked Adilson Rodrigues in about 2 minutes and 39 seconds of the second round of their fight. Let's go down to the podium for a little bit.
Let's see who's tougher and who has better experience. What's the question? The question
George
is,
Foreman continues his post-fight news conference, and we will continue our coverage live from Caesars Palace in Las Vegas as SportsCenter, an expanded edition, rolls on in just a couple of minutes.
Hours after that. Well, time for us to go back out to Las Vegas to check in now, where, of course, George Foreman, well, I apologize for that remark. George Foreman and Mike Tyson are victorious. Let's go back to Charlie Steiner. Charlie.
All right, Tom, as we continue our live coverage on a night of the heavyweights here at Caesars Palace, Mike Tyson and George Foreman, the ESPN boxing heavyweights, join me, Al Bernstein and Barry Tompkins. Barry, did Mike Tyson prove anything tonight, or was this a glorified sparring session?
Yeah, I don't think he proved anything, but I don't think it was his fault. You know, I think he did everything he needed to do. He got the guy out of there, but again, I think you have to consider the caliber of opponent that he was fighting. I mean, you can't tell if Mike Tyson is a Rolls Royce if he's fighting a Nash Rambler.
I like those automobile analogies. Yeah, I think I would agree with Barry. There is no way that you can accurately say what Tyson would do. The only thing you can look at is the fact that he did do several things very good. He feinted very well, which he hasn't been doing in recent fights. He used his jab coming in, and he was in darn good shape. That was good.
Let's take a look at some of the still photographs of the very quick first round. Yeah. It was the crashing right hand on the temple that did in Henry Tillman in a hurry.
And it was after Tillman had landed a very good right hand of his own, but you know what? That's a cruiserweight right hand hitting him, not a heavyweight right hand. Tillman really isn't a heavyweight.
And these aren't still photos. This is the whole fight, folks.
You flip them real quickly, they would end up being showing the fight. Henry Tillman, I mean, truthfully, that was not a great right hand that Mike Tyson threw. It was a good right hand, but it wasn't a great right hand. Henry Tillman was scared coming at this fight and very nervous.
Those still photos look like an old Nickelodeon, didn't they?
That's right. That's the way it was.
We had a chance to talk to Henry Tillman just a little bit ago. He joined us here on the podium, and now let's take a listen to that. You are looking now at Henry Tillman, who is the victim of the wrath of Mike Tyson in the first round tonight here in Las Vegas. Henry, tell us about the first round.
Well, I think basically I just got a little excited. I seen how easy it was for me to touch him with the right hand. And I should have stuck with the game plan, which was to move and carry him into the third, fourth round before I start connecting with the right hand. But like I said, I seen how easy it was for me to touch him with the right hand, and I got excited. I hit him with one good right hand, which I wish I would have never threw, because I would have stayed on my game plan at the time. And I got caught early while he was good and strong. And we hit it. I was throwing a punch, he was throwing a punch. So basically I didn't actually see the punch coming, because he was in between punches.
He was feinting very effectively with you, which is something he hasn't been doing in some of the fights. Did that bother you, the feints?
Not necessarily.
Not really? What about that right you hit him with? Did you think you hurt him at all or stunned him with that?
Yeah, I think I stunned him because it bagged him up a couple steps and stood him straight up. And basically I wish I would have stepped up with the left hook, but our game plan was to stick with the jab the first 2-3 rounds and, you know, knock some of the steam off of him and try not to get caught early while he's good and really strong. But I got off my game plan and saw how easy it was for me to hit with the right hand, and I got a little confident.
Ray Leonard
got caught, that's all.
Ray Leonard told me that when you and he talked yesterday, that he said to you, go after him early, jump on him early, because if he's going to be vulnerable at all, it's going to be right at the opening bell.
Yeah, he did, and but I don't think that had nothing to do with what I was out there doing. Like I said earlier, I just seen how easy it was for me to touch him with the right hand, and it was with a good right hand. You know, it bagged him up, and I don't know how much it hurt him, but it definitely got his attention. And I started taking things for granted. You know, I wanted to sit around and start standing around, and I let it close the distance on me. When at first I was moving, making him run into the ropes and whatnot, I should have kept that up for 2 rounds. I mean, no excuses. Just caught me with a good shot, caught me in between punches, and hurt me.
Henry, as you prepared for the fight and looked at tapes, did you think that Tyson could be vulnerable to the right hand? Was that something you worked on?
Oh yes, definitely. We worked on the right hand off of the jab. That's what you saw me throw today. And just that I just started trying to utilize the right hand too early in the fight, while he was still really fresh and strong. I should have carried the fight into deeper water a little bit longer.
Well, Henry, thanks for coming on up, and we're glad you're okay, safe and sound. And glad to hear it. Henry Tillman. All right. We'll be back here as our coverage continues from Caesar's Palace on the road back. We're going to take a detour here and journey.
The agent told Thomas today that he was
to Mike Tyson and George Foreman. Gentlemen?
Well, thanks, Dave. And it was sure a short subject in both instances, Fred. George Foreman needed less than 2 rounds. Mike Tyson got the job done within 1.
And big George Foreman took out Adilson Rodrigues, 2:39 of the second round. Left no doubt about it. No tomato can here. And afterwards, George talked to me about what his ultimate goal in boxing would be.
The goal has always been to be heavyweight champion of the world. Yeah. I think that right now the winner of the fight tonight, Mike Tyson, George Foreman, should collide. Buster Douglas seemed he's on the hideaway for a while and lost lawsuits and things of that nature, or he want to be a wrestler or whatever. I want to get in the ring, and Mike Tyson and George Foreman shouldn't be fighting anyone else but one another.
That would be a tremendous draw, and that's something that you want.
And Holyfield, he can join in with us too. That's my ultimate goal, to be champion of the world and fight these top contenders and stop playing around.
Well, George, tell me this. When are you going to be in action again? I mean, are you ready to go right now?
Yeah, I'd like to be back in the ring in the next 30 days. I can't afford to take off. If I do, I keep eating, and the next thing you know, there's no planet. I'll eat the whole thing up.
You got to leave some for the rest of us, George. George Foreman, who was victorious tonight at Caesar's Palace over Adilson Rodrigues.
And then along came Mike Tyson against Henry Tillman. And the first time Tyson clipped Tillman, he clocked him. He was down with the right hand and out 2 minutes and 47 seconds into the first round. Mike Tyson, a triumphant return, the first step along the comeback trail. Minutes afterwards, I caught up with him in his locker room.
Mike Tyson, you had the cold, hungry look of a wolf man. How did you feel going in?
I used to feel very relaxed and confident. You know what I mean? Because of my outcome in Japan, I still know I'm the best fighter on the planet.
So there was no doubt or any healthy dose of doubt?
Not at all. I'm very calm, very relaxed.
You just went in and you created aggression, Mike.
I wanted this blood. But, you know, I was prepared to go 15 rounds.
What did you?
I wanted to say something. You know what I mean? Thank God and all. Henry Tillman, believe it or not, is a great friend of mine. No one knows that. Me and Henry hanging out. We're good friends. And I was bad. It's business, but it's so bad. I feel so bad now that I had to come out to this. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to see him and we're going to hang out. And I'm just going to feel the feeling's going to be bad.
But you just knew going in, like what happened, okay, you're never going to get embarrassed again. That was the point, right, Mike?
Not ever again. You know what I mean? I'm never going to lose again.
How'd you break him down? Tell me.
Because I was just feigning. I was throwing a jab. I was a little hesitant. I was laying on my right, which I never do. And he graded me with a right hand on top of the head.
On the road to the championship again, right, Mike Tyson?
I'm the best fighter in the world. There's no doubt I'll be the champion.
Thank you very much for being with us, Mike.
Thank you, Nick.
And you know, Mike Tyson wasn't kidding when he said he and Tillman are friends. He actually ran over to Tillman after he was down to check and see if he was okay.
We saw Henry a couple of minutes ago. He's fine. Looks like next September 8th, Mike Tyson, if they could get it together against Alex Stewart, Francisco Damiani will fight George Foreman, if that card can be made. But that'll do it right now from Las Vegas. I'm Nick Charles.
And I'm Fred Hickman. We'll see you during CNN Sports Late Night.
This is Ron Hyde, Headline Sports. On Saturday night at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, the puncher and the preacher made their opponents see the light. Mike Tyson returned to the ring with a fury as he made mincemeat of Henry Tillman. Tyson knocked Tillman out with just 14 seconds left in round one. Tyson nailed Tillman with an overhand right, and Tillman went reeling to the canvas, from which he never rose. It was Tyson's first ring action since he was upset by Buster Douglas in February. Tyson's 38-1. Now to the preacher, big George Foreman, who at age 42 and at 263 pounds, destroyed Adilson Rodrigues and knocked out the Brazilian just 2 minutes and 39 seconds into round two. Foreman's now 67-2 with 63 knockouts and is unbeaten in 22 fights since returning to the ring 3 years ago.
Well, basically, you know, I'm an experienced fighter. So if it went 10 and went 1 round, regardless of the issue, you know what I mean? I'm just happy to get the win, you know what I mean? And I felt great, and I was just prepared to fight all night long. I'm just in good shape.
I think that right now the winner of the fight tonight, Mike Tyson, George Foreman, should collide. Buster Douglas seems he's on the hideaway for a while and lawsuits and things of that nature, or he want to be a wrestler or whatever. I want to get in the ring, and Mike Tyson and George Foreman shouldn't be fighting anyone else but one another.
Got national media, print and electronic media, and a whole lot of folks to pay a lot of money to see less than 3 rounds of boxing in 2 fights.
Most of the time Mike Tyson gets in the ring, they don't go very long anyway.
That's right.
And tonight that certainly summed up what happened. Former undisputed world heavyweight champ Mike Tyson made his much ballyhooed return to the ring Saturday night in Las Vegas. Iron Mike's opponent, one Henry Tillman, whose one claim to fame was that he beat Tyson in the 1984 Olympic trials. Also on Saturday night's card at Caesars Palace, a 41-year-old George Foreman, who has high hopes of someday earning a shot against Tyson. Charlie Steiner is up next with Saturday night's story from Vegas.
Welcome back to Las Vegas. They entitled this promotion The Road Back. It was not expected to be a bumpy one for either Mike Tyson or George Foreman, and lo and behold, it couldn't have been any smoother. As far as Mike Tyson was concerned, he knocked out Henry Tillman in the first round, late in the first round, with a crushing right hand as you take a look at the Nickelodeon version of the first round. It was over in a hurry. The right hand did in Henry Tillman, and Mike Tyson continued on his road back. As far as George Foreman was concerned, they have been outpointed in the first round by Adilson Rodrigues, but in the second round, the crushing left hand of George Foreman did away with Adilson Rodrigues. And after the fights, we got reaction.
A lot of people criticized me saying I was fighting stiffs, but they were only saying that because it's true.
But you're not fighting stiffs anymore.
No, I'm fighting some good fighters here recently, good fighters. Like I said, I prefer to be fighting Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Buster Douglas. But right now, they're not waiting in line to fight me. But I think in the near future, I'll be in that ring. I'm going to be heavyweight champ of the world. All I need is an opportunity.
Well, I was very confident going in. I was a little hesitant. I had a little butterfly. I was very confident. I was just extremely confident about the outcome.
Did you sense that he was nervous? He really looked to be very nervous.
Well, you know what I mean? I knew he was nervous, and I was looking at it, but as we were boxing, I watched him move, and that was giving me time, because I was throwing the feint, because I calmed down, I was throwing the feint, and I knew he was going to be set up for a right hand.
I think basically I just got a little excited. I seen how easy it was for me to touch him with the right hand, and I should have stuck with the game plan, which was to move and carry him into third, fourth round before I start connecting with the right hand.
Well, I'll fight anybody, but right now I'm going to get ready to leave. I'm going to get ready to catch a plane and go to Cleveland. But the only thing I want to do is just be my son. And, you know, I thank everybody, and I just want to thank all my fans, and thank the Japanese and everyone all around the world that came from different countries, and thank you. And I'm representing you from now on, and believe me, I'll never lose again.
Mike Tyson didn't waste any time after he deposited Henry Tillman tonight. He's already taking the red-eye back home. Joining us once again, of course, our ESPN boxing analyst with some final thoughts. First, here's Wally Matthews. Wally?
Well, Tyson came back, I think, with a vengeance tonight. You know, Henry Tillman is not the hardest guy in the world to knock out, but you still have to go in there and do it. Even if you're coming off a crushing defeat like Tyson was in Tokyo, there is something to going out there, throwing your doubts aside, and getting the job done, and that's exactly what he did.
Barry?
Well, they call this fight, as you mentioned, the road back, and for me, he had two opponents tonight who never got out of the garage. So I don't know if really this was, in fact, the road back. If it was the road back, though, I think it's George Foreman and not Mike Tyson who's in the driver's seat.
I'll be curious to see if, in fact, this has whetted the appetite of the public for the doubleheader that they're trying to pitch involving Foreman and Tyson. I'll also be curious to know if people care more about these two heavyweights than they ultimately will about Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield, who are fighting for that real world championship in September.
It looks like they were already planning on the fight of the year for 1991. George Foreman and Mike Tyson. For Wally Matthews and Al Bernstein, and of course Barry Tompkins, I'm Charlie Steiner in Las Vegas. Let's go back to Sports Center.
No heavyweight belts are on the line, though, but plenty of belting among the big boys tonight. And our Nick Charles and Fred Hickman are standing by with details from Caesars Palace.
Thank you and welcome back to Las Vegas. And oh, what a night we've had here, Nick. The only excitement really being when that transformer blew up and some of us had to scurry for our lives. But other than that, everything went according to plan.
Well, it sure did. These were supposed to be colossal mismatches, yet over 700 media people came and 13,000 people paid a stiff price to watch these fights. Mike Tyson on the comeback trail. Who knew how he would react? Well, when he hit the ring, we knew. The first time he hit Henry Tillman cleanly, he clocked him. It was over inside of one. And moments afterwards, I talked to Mike Tyson in the locker room.
Mike Tyson, you had the cold, hungry look of a wolf man. How did you feel going in?
I used to feel very relaxed and confident. You know what I mean? Because of my outcome in Japan, I still know I'm the best fighter on the planet.
So there was no doubt or any healthy dose of doubt?
Not at all. I'm very calm, very relaxed.
You just went in and you created aggression, Mike.
I wanted this blood. You know, I was prepared to go 15 rounds.
What did you?
I wanted to say something, you know what I mean? Thank God and all. Henry Tillman, believe it or not, is a great friend of mine. No one knows that. Me and Henry hanging out, we're good friends. And I was bad. It's business, but it's so bad. I feel so bad now that I had to come out to this. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to see him and we're going to hang out, and I'm just going to feel, the feeling's going to be bad.
But you just knew going in, like what happened in Tokyo, you're never going to get embarrassed again. That was the point, right, Mike?
Not ever again. You know what I mean? I'm never going to lose again.
How'd you break him down? Tell me.
Because I was just feigning. I was doing a jab. I was a little hesitant. I was laying on my right, which I never do. And he graded me with a right hand on top of the head.
On the road to the championship again, right, Mike Tyson?
I'm the best fighter in the world. There's no doubt I'll be the champion.
I was able to touch him with a good right hand, so I said, well, maybe I got something here. And as you've seen, I didn't. He hit me with a great overhand right, which caught me high on the temple. But Mike, he's back. He's a great fighter, and these are the type of fights and challenges I like is to come up against other great fighters. And congratulations, Mike, he's back.
So for Mike Tyson, this was obviously the confident shot he needed, Fred. Up next, a September 8th date against Alex Stewart, a guy who gave Evander Holyfield some trouble.
Well, before Tyson went to work tonight, big George Foreman, 41 years old, 263 pounds, went to work on Adilson Rodrigues, knocked him out in the second round this evening. And then after the fight, he talked to us about what his ultimate goal in boxing now is.
The ultimate goal has always been to be heavyweight champion of the world. Yeah. I think that right now the winner of the fight tonight, Mike Tyson, George Foreman, should collide. Buster Douglas seems he's on the hideaway for a while and lost lawsuits and things of that nature, or he want to be a wrestler or whatever. I want to get in the ring, and Mike Tyson and George Foreman shouldn't be fighting anyone else but one another.
That would be a tremendous draw, and that's something that you want.
And Holyfield, he can join in with us too. That's my ultimate goal, to be champion of the world and fight these top contenders and stop playing around.
Well, George, tell me this. When are you going to be in action again? I mean, are you ready to go right now? Or?
Yeah, I'd like to be back in the ring in the next 30 days. I can't afford to take off. If I do, I keep eating, and the next thing you know, there's no planet. I'll eat the whole thing up.
Well, I'm sure Big George is wending his way over to the buffet before it closes tonight, but as far as boxing is concerned, he's going to have to settle for Francisco Damiani, or at least it seems that way now, although he does want Tyson.
Right, it looks like another Tyson-Foreman doubleheader, but not against each other, of course. There's no direct clash September 8th here in Las Vegas. Tyson will fight Stewart. Foreman, if he agrees, will fight Damiani. And then the next big fight, September 21st, also here in Las Vegas, so it's going to be a hot one in the desert. Buster Douglas, first time back, first time with the belt against #1 heavyweight contender Evander Holyfield.
Well, what a terrific ride it's been for us this week. We have so many people to thank, the folks at Caesars Palace, the folks at HBO Sports. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay, thanks for being with us. I'm Nick Charles.
And I'm Fred Hickman. Now back to you in Atlanta.
They are all right. Headline Sports. Fight night in Vegas turned out to be blowout night as the two favorites blew away their opponents. First, Iron Mike Tyson made his first return to the ring after losing to Buster Douglas this past winter and hardly broke a sweat as he connected a right hook and dropped Henry Tillman with 23 seconds left in the first round. Tyson improved to 38-1 with the victory. The undercard featured Big George Foreman against Brazilian Adilson Rodrigues. The 41-year-old former heavyweight champion dropped Rodrigues at the 239 mark of the second round. He improved to 67-2, 63 of those wins for Big George by knockout.
In case you were wondering, in case there was even a lingering doubt, he's back, boxing on HBO.